I chose this data set because koala is one of my favorite animals, and I thought it would be intriguing to explore it. So this data set's based in Queensland, and it's reports made from April 1996 to February 2017, and it contains around 40,000 reports based on the gender of the koala, maturity level, health status, and initial time of assessment. So each of the report is made to Mogul Koala Rehabilitation Centre in Queensland, and they're admitted for chlamydia-related diseases, traumatic injuries, and orphan joeys. From here, the statistics are collated, and there's now over 50,000 records, and the Queensland Department uses it to produce maps and guideline management decisions for koalas. So my initial exploration of data. I know Ben isn't the biggest fans of pie charts, but I thought it was a good representation to show the genders of the koalas. And if you exclude the unknown, you can see that it's almost an even divide between the male and female koalas. From here, I did the size of koalas, and with this graph, I was a little relieved to see that the younger koalas have less reports, meaning their parents are obviously doing a great job protecting them, whereas a lot of them were older in size. So not only the suburb is shown where the report was taken, but the situation of where the koala was. And as you can see, a lot was taken in the trees, on the ground, in captivity. And I was curious about where the other locations could be, whether they were in the water or something like that. So I wanted to have a bit of fun with the data. And so in the sightings of the names, they were given as either deaths, sightings, if they were euthanized, but some of them had actual names given to them. So I filtered through and I found the top 25 koala names. So the top 3 were Harry, Charlie, and George, and Ben made it in at the very end. So I decided to see the reports over the years. And it was interesting after plotting this graph, and led me to other areas I could explore. It was interesting to see the incline and decline throughout the years, and it sparked a few questions, and 2 of which was why there was a sudden drop after 2010. Unfortunately, I couldn't find information on why, but it could be that the populations of koalas were decreasing during this time, but it's very drastic, the drop. My other question was why 2009 had the most reports out of all the years. And so the reason why was because there was severe floodings during the southeast Queensland and northeastern New South Wales, and isolated tens of thousands of people and led to many rescues, including koalas. With the next slide, it shows where the reports were taken throughout all these years, and you can see that majority were in the southeast and where this flooding zone was. There was a few down below that showed that they were in New South Wales, with the occasional ones up north and to the west. Yeah. So for the next part, I wanted to see the suburban month exploration, and to see where each suburb had the most reports and why the case was. So Kapalaba, Petrie, and Kalenga were the top 3. And from here, I wanted to see if there was a relationship between where these places were. And so the map here shows the placement of each of the suburbs. And I thought it was interesting that there was just 2 distinct clusters, the random one in the lower southwest, but Kapalaba and Petrie are completely separated. So I thought that was a little bit random that happened. I then wanted to explore when each recording was made per month, and you can see that the 3rd quarter of the year, August, September, October, was when the most reports were made. Something that stood out to me the most was every year, each month has roughly the same amount of reports made. So as you can see, September, there's increments, and then March, there's little increments every year, which, yeah, was really curious. So then I decided to see the koala hospital. The reason why the reports are made is because of traumatic injuries, deaths, chlamydia-related diseases. So I wanted to make a plot to see what the most were and maybe relate them to the month that these reports were made. So vehicle hits, so a lot of koalas were hit by cars, and that's why the reports were made, as well as cystitis, which is a chlamydia-related disease. While orphan and falling koalas were the least reported. Finally, with this graph, I was curious to see which suburbs had the most reports based on the previous cases, and Kapalaba was the suburb with the most amount of reports, and they had the top 4, of the causes shown, whereas Petrie had the most dog attacks, and Kurrawongbah and Kuminga had the most fall and autumn cases. I wanted to see, I was going to divide the number of cases by the number of reports as well, but some suburbs only had one report, so it would skew a lot of data. So from the conclusions, I said, if you decided to become a koala, don't head to Kapalaba as it has the highest reports. And if you ever drive through Queensland suburbs of Kapalaba, Thornland, Petrie, Kalinga, and Cleveland, maybe slow down and look out for koalas on the road. And maybe have some originality if you want to name a koala besides Harry, Charlie, or George. And for possible further exploration, I wanted to see the trends of 2018 and 19. Maybe there was a data frame base somewhere else. And it would be interesting to see which year or month had the most reports around the most amount of suburbs. And I wanted to see why there's such a decrease after 2010. So yeah, that's it.
Nice one. Okay, so I mean that was going to be my question, is like why was that big decrease? I think overall that was pretty interesting. There were some nice map graphs. I think the one that showed the two distinct clusters of kind of koala habitats, I'm guessing that's where koalas live. That's why the reports are there. But it would be interesting to see if there were, if you could find another koala data set that showed populations rather than, maybe there's another population of koalas that are just like really well behaved and don't get drunk and walk around on the road or something like that. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I found it interesting because the most were vehicle hits, but then most of them were found in trees. So it's like they got hit and then ran up a tree or something like that. But yeah,
possibly. Yeah, so that's very interesting. Did you, Phoebe and Scarlett, did you have any thoughts?
I had a similar thought to you about the area, like they had the largest recordings, potentially looking into like, was it woodland area or there are lots of eucalyptus trees that happen to be in that suburb, sort of relate that to another data set to see if like there's a reason that they have the highest number of koalas, could be like a good thing. I found it really good that there was the insight behind the 2009 spike with the flooding. I didn't realize it was flooding then, but it was really good to like connect those two things. So there was a story behind it. And yeah, I think that the graphs are really good. They gave me a really clear picture of what you were trying to say.
Thank you, Phoebe.